Hey everybody, Critic here, and I absolutely loved the Spectacular Spider-Man. It isn't easy to convert a comic book into a TV show. There are many problems the showrunners will face in attempting to adapt what's already been printed on paper for years. For example, certain characters will need to be rewritten, certain plot points might need to be cut out, and of course the issue of creative liberty versus staying faithful to the original source material is always a challenge. However, the producers of The Spectacular Spider-Man never had any of those issues during the show's two-season run. If anything, the show was sometimes better than the comics that inspired it. As a lifelong Spider-Man fan, I can attest to the fact that bringing a wall-crawling superhero to the silver screen can be pretty tricky. Dozens of shows have tried to recapture the very exciting, smart-mouthed adventures of the web-slinging teenager before, but only a few of them managed to succeed. At best, we got shows like Spider-Man or Spider-Man Unlimited, but at worst, we got Spider-Man the New Animated Series and Ultimate Spider-Man. However, The Spectacular Spider-Man was the one show that was able to beat the rest in terms of engaging drama and relatable characters. It was a show that not only reinvented Spider-Man, but made him a hell of a lot cooler than he already was. What is it about this show that makes him my favorite animated series of all time? What sets The Spectacular Spider-Man apart from the many different iterations of the character? Well, for one thing, the show knew when to take itself seriously and when to be funny. This show had such great writing that every conversation between Spider-Man and the supervillains he faced felt natural. Couple that with phenomenal voice work by Josh Keaton, who played the Wallcrawler himself, and some of the funniest quips you will ever hear this side of Deadpool, and you have one of the best animated series of all time.
Oh, I got the thing on the thing. What do I win?
You!
I win me? That makes no sense.
See? Anyone can pretend to be Spidey and you guys will eat it up. But there's only one genuine article.
You mean Peter Parker?
Yeah. No! This guy!
He's my biggest fan, which is sad, really. Is there anyone in here?
Get lost!
I'm afraid I can't do that, Mr. Parrot.
Get lost! Get lost! Get lost!
Of course, this show wasn't just about Peter Parker's life as Spider-Man, it also dealt with the issues that he faced as puny Parker, the wimpy nerd from Midtown High. On top of having to fight villains like the Vulture and Mysterio, Peter Parker also had to sort out his often messy love life involving the two major romantic interests of the series, Liz Allen and Gwen Stacy. Add his Aunt May's failing health to the mix, and there's plenty of emotional conflicts and developments to be found in this series. One of the most impressive things about the Spectacular Spider-Man was his ability to give its huge cast of characters their own unique personalities and struggles. For example, Gwen Stacy evolves from being Pete's friend to becoming one of his biggest romantic interests. Flash Thompson goes from being a stereotypical jock bully to a genuine friend of Peter who's willing to give him a reality check when he needs to. Even villains like Dr. Octopus and the Sandman get their own character arcs, with the former being a well-meaning doctor who falls into the wrong crowd of people until an accident turns him into a supervillain bent on world domination, and the latter being a common crook who's always chased after that big score, but eventually begins to soften and questions using his powers for good. With how well this series was written and produced, it's kind of a shame that it only lasted 26 episodes. Granted, that's more than some one-season wonders get, but still, you can't help but feel that this show was cancelled far too early. The story behind this show getting canned is a very complicated and confusing one to talk about. Basically, what happened was that Sony and Marvel brokered a deal wherein the movie and television rights to Spider-Man would return to his parent company, meaning that Marvel had creative control over every animated series based on the webhead except for Spectacular. Why did Sony refuse to give this show to Marvel? Simple, it was making them a ton of money. But since they sold the TV rights to Spider-Man back to Marvel, technically nobody can continue producing this show. Wow, Sony, thanks to you, the Spectacular Spider-Man got cancelled, Ghostbusters is going down the shitter, and we won't get to see Genndy Tartakovsky's version of Popeye. Let's not forget the fact that you tried to trademark the term Let's Play so that YouTubers couldn't use it in their videos, you approved the Emoji Movie, and you forced people to pay to play online on the PS4. I could run down a list of all of the other shitty decisions Sony has made as a company, but we gotta keep this video focused. This is about the spectacular Spider-Man, not how bad a company Sony is. What really sucks about this show getting cancelled is that, to my recollection, it was one of the last superhero shows marketed to children that tackled serious issues like drug abuse and gambling addiction. That's not to say that superhero shows focused primarily on the comedy are bad, it was just refreshing to see a show that knew when to be silly, goofy fun, and yet could still have a lasting impact on its audience through its messages. I'd say that the only superhero shows that matched Spectacular's level of quality were Young Justice and Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes. You want to know what the funny thing is? All of these shows were cancelled after just 2 seasons. What were we given instead? Teen Titans Go, Avengers Assembled, and Ultimate Spider-Man. And people wonder why I don't watch TV anymore. Despite having such a short lifespan, this show will live on in the hearts of its fans, not just for its three-dimensional characters and well-paced stories, but for its kick-ass theme song as well.
Arriving in the speed of time. Spectacular, spectacular Spider-Man. Spectacular, spectacular Spider-Man. Spectacular. Spectacular, spectacular Spider-Man. Spectacular, spectacular Spider-Man.
I swear, if Spider-Man Homecoming doesn't feature at least a remix of this theme song, I am going to be pissed. If anybody wanted to give this show a chance but didn't know which episode to watch first, I'd recommend the Season 1 classic, Intervention. In this episode, Peter Parker has been struggling with the alien symbiote that he acquired earlier in the season, as it begins corrupting his mind and screwing with his morality. After trying to get rid of the suit, Peter is forced to relive his own origin story. Before the symbiote can fully convince him to permanently bond with it, the memory of Uncle Ben reminds Peter that despite all of the crap that he's gone through in life, there are still people that care about him and support him, and that's reason enough to reject the symbiote. After breaking free of the suit, Spider-Man throws it back into its prison at the lab of Dr. Kurt Connors and presumably freezes it to death. However, the alien goo doesn't die, and instead bonds with Eddie Brock, a former friend of Peter who has grown to hate him, giving way to the introduction of one of Spidey's most memorable villains, Venom. Intervention was a heart-wrenching, action-packed thriller that provided a unique interpretation of the classic symbiote storyline, and it was one of the few episodes of any TV series that actually managed to make me tear up a bit. It's an excellently told story that goes right up there with If This Be My Destiny as being one of Spidey's best. As of now, the show has been released both on iTunes and Blu-ray, so I suggest that you all go pick it up and watch it. Or you can just do what I did and torrent it. Either way, you're going to have a blast watching this show, even if you're not a fan of Spider-Man. Alright, now that I'm done sucking this show's dick, let me get to the 2 problems that I have with the series. One of them is that the character designs were admittedly a little lazy. For example, I did not like Electro's design, and Kraven the Hunter just looked goofy and not in a good way. I just felt like the artists could have tried a little harder to make sure that their designs stood out from the various other interpretations of the characters in the Spider-Man universe. The second problem that this show had was that it dropped certain storylines before they even had a resolution. For example, Aunt May's failing health and her financial issues never addressed after the first season. You might get like a hint of it here or there in season 2, but for the most part people just forgot about it. And Sandman's redemption arc? That doesn't go anywhere. Seriously, it doesn't. They pretty much act like it never happened, like it didn't exist. It just kind of leaves off on a cliffhanger and it feels awkward. Those problems don't really detract from the experience though. You can still watch the series and have a blast even if you get a little pissed off that some of the storylines don't really have an ending to them. The Spectacular Spider-Man was the pinnacle of animation, at least for superhero shows, and I long for the day where the Wallcrawler can return to the silver screen and be written by people who actually give a shit about the character. Until next time guys, I'm Alex the Critic, and I'll see you later.